Okay, and it's even though it's distant, but still being able to see through virtually, it's also quite nice, and to get in contact in that way. Okay, and yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Of course, we all have our own small challenges, every day. Sometimes more bigger challenge, sometimes smaller challenges, sometimes individual challenges, sometimes is more broader challenges. But I think as we have been going through the Lojong and as we have been discussing, is learning through practice, through Lojong practice, is all about how to deal with those challenges in a more positive way. And how to transform them in a more positive, into the spiritual, into the path. So yeah. So we'll start with, again, as usual, with a short mindful breathing exercise, watching your breath mindfully for a few moments. Then we can try to check and watch our own emotions, our own feelings. That is going either at the moment, this week, this month, recently. And try to see if any of the feelings, emotions bothering us, or has been bothering us. Thereby making our life more unhappy, more miserable. If those are happening, if we have been disturbed and bothered by some of those feeling, emotions, thoughts, it's a reminder to us why we need to practice even more. and nothing's bothering us, agitating us, disturbing our mind. That is wonderful. That is great. Even so, we still need to practice the Dharma until we become totally enlightened. And the importance of Dharma practice is even more relevant and even more needed now, especially in such a turbulent, difficult time at the moment with that everything going on in the world in general, and especially in this country. If we don't have the tools through the practice of Dharma, our mind can be easily, very easily, so disturbed. And in order to practice the Dharma, we need to be reminded of practice the Dharma, Many of us know Dharma a little bit. It's not that we don't know at all, but a lot of time we tend to forget to apply when it is needed in practice. So coming together and reminding ourselves, each others, on a weekly basis or time to time is helpful reminder. That is why we are coming here together. Once it has been reminded, we have to try. Even though we might not be perfect, but we have to at least try as much as possible to apply, to implement every day as much as possible. And may us coming together, sharing the Dharma, reflecting, contemplating. May all of this become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, fully awakened state as soon as possible, and to be greatest service to all sentient beings. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge, in and in good conduct, Sugata and all of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God and human being to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed and standard destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three, devote devote in homage. To all due respect, bowing with bodies as many as all lambs, Adams in all aspects, with their supreme faith appear homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Perform only perfect virtuous action. Subdue your mind to this, the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual apparitions, a flame of lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, sea condition, things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from samsara's oceans, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Sa-chi-pe ki-chon-shi-me-to ta-ri-ra-le-shi Ye-je-je-ba-de San-ge-shin-do mi-de-o-wa Do-kun-na-ma-ta-shin I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Shodan Soge Sonam La Chanju Bado Dane Dage Geshe Chekawa Dola Penje Sangye Juba Sangye Shodan Soge Sonam Chanju Bado Dage Geshe Chekawa Dola Penje Sangye Juba. So, since the beginning of this year, when I started teaching, we more or less we have been kind of discussing on Lojong, particularly this 7-point of mind training. And again, I think those Lojong teachings and practices are relevant all the time and very beneficial, helpful all the time. Whether it's a beginner, whether it's on the path, or someone who has been on the path, or someone who is very advanced on the path, it's something that everyone can practice, everyone can apply in their everyday life, and those teachings, can be applied. Even people who does not have to be a Buddhist, even people who doesn't have to believe in any religious, it's a very practical. Many of those practices are extremely practical and beneficial, working with our mind, and basically it's a tool to become your own therapy. It is a tool to become your own therapy. And of course, it's definitely the path to practice, the path to enlightenment, practice and path. to be able to serve and be benefit to the world, any leaders of any organizations or any individuals who are able to apply and practice those Lojongs in their life will definitely, there's no doubt they will definitely be able to be more kind, more compassionate, more understanding, more caring to the people around them, sentient beings around them, to be able to be more helpful to the society. So I think it's a extremely powerful practice to find your own mental peace, joy, happiness, as well as a tool to be more benefit and help to others. It's a tools and to become better human being, better persons. It's a tool to achieve enlightenment. So, so yeah. And so concerning the particular Lojong text that we have been following, the 7-point of mind training by Geshe Chekawa. So we are on the point 7, and that is the advices of the Lojongs. And within that, I think, there are, in most of them, there is a 21 advices. And then the one we have, it seems to have made it 22. So anyway, I think we have finished up to the 8 up to last week. And so we'll kind of continue that. So 9.1 here said, never be parted from the 3 positions. The 9th advice of the precept, so what it means here is, we should try to engage into the reframing from unwholesome or non-virtuous actions through our 3 doors, and trying to engage into virtuous and wholesome actions through 3 doors all the times. And the 3 doors are the body, speech, and mind. These are what we know as 3 doors or the gate. And because it's through it's like the gateway. When you enter something, it's the gateway. So our body, speech, and mind are the door or the gateway in reframing from any unhealthy, harmful, unwholesome actions, as well as it is a doorway or the gate in entering, in engaging to something beneficial, meaningful, wholesome, virtuous actions. It's through our 3 doors that we interact with ourselves and interact with others. We interact with ourselves and with others through either body, speech, mind, those 3 gates. three doors, and so it is important to shut down the gate, the door, when there is something that danger of hurting yourself or others. That is restraining or reframing through three doors in engage in unwholesome actions. And then we try to open the gate or the door when there is something that benefit and bring true happiness to oneself and others. And that is engaging in the virtues, wholesome action through these doors, and so that is what it means. As we have been mentioned before, the Lojong practice is to be in the practice of bodhisattvas, on the path to the bodhisattva, to help and benefit others, all sentient beings, as much as possible. And even if we cannot help, at least we try not to hurt and harm. That is the kind of the very minimum that practice of the Lojong, the practice of the bodhisattvas, And so this practice come to that, if we can help sentient beings, by saving their life, by practicing generosity, by trying to be more kind of, faithful, trustworthy, by speaking honestly, truth, by using our speech kind, gentle way, by using our speech to bring the individual or groups, society together instead of dividing them, instead of creating divisions, trying to help to bring together, and using our speech for something more meaningful, instead of using it to meaningless gossips, talking bad about others, thereby, creating more damage, more problems, more divisions into the societies, and so instead of using in such meaningless, we try to use in a meaningful, use the speech in something meaningful, helpful to the society, to the sentient beings, something virtuous, and using our mind to develop, more sense of contentment, instead of greediness, trying to develop more compassion, more love, trying to develop more right views instead of wrong view and ignorance, trying to develop more right views. So through that, then we try to bring more benefit to others and oneself by engaging our body and speech in that way. We can be much more benefit to others, much more benefit to sentient beings, much more benefit to the society. And even we can't do that, even we are unable to do that, at least we try to refrain from any harmful, any hurtful action through body and speech, refrain from taking the life of others, stealing others' possessions, engaging into sexual misconduct, refraining from telling lies, divisive speech, harsh speech, meaningless idle gossips, refraining from the mental state of covetousness, ill will feelings, wrong views, So living our life according to that values, that principle, that value and principle, refraining from those harmful, hurtful actions and engaging those beneficial and helpful action through body and speech and mind. So that is what it is. This is the very kind of the foundation. This is the very kind of fundamental practice. So that is the meaning of that the precept number 9, And 10 is where it says train consistently without partiality. So when you have in some there is 21, and so then the 10 and 11 is counted in 1, But anyway, so here is counted as 2. So what here is saying is, when you are engaging in the practice of the Lojongs, we are trying to develop true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, equally to all sentient beings. At least that is our, the goal, At least that is the state where we want to be, And so since that is so then we try to practice and train without being too uneven, unbalanced, partial, discriminating. Instead, we try to practice to be more balanced in interacting, in dealing with others, trying to be more even, trying to be more, less discriminating, less impartial. And so, at the moment, we are too partial, we tend to be too partial, too unbalanced, uneven, to some where we feel close, whether it's our family, whether it's our friend, whether it's our pet, we become so attached. And when something happened to them, it disturbs us for days, weeks, months, it feels like we want to give everything. Sometimes you feel like, you wish you can give everything. You wish you can change everything. And then when it comes to someone else, it's hard to find time, even to keep in our prayer. When something happens to ours, we pray days, weeks, months. We request everyone, please pray for this. Please pray. And we practice so strongly, and we pray, and we ask for prayers, and we worry, and all of that. But then what about others? So many other beings who are suffering, even much more worse. And it doesn't come in our thoughts, in our mind. As though they are not a human beings, as though they are not a sentient beings. It's hard to keep them in our heart. Not much concern, When it happens to very close to us, then If we can do same amount of such a practice to everyone, then that would be great. And that is where it's saying, training to be impartial. At the moment, we are too partial. We are so attached to some, and then almost like indifference to others, isn't it? Sometimes we hear, sometimes we see, devastating in other part of the countries, other part of the world, in other countries, and we feel a little bit, oh, sad, so sad, so sad. But how much do we really put effort to even pray for them, keep in our prayers, forget about more than that others? But when it comes very close, something happened in this country, someone has been shot. We feel very close because it's so close to us in our country. So then we want to pray for them and we have a concern and all of that. But it's just human beings, both are human beings. In some cases, there are hundreds and thousands, 100,000 people are, affected so badly, and we don't give much attention to those. We give only attention to those who are closer to us. The more closer to us, the more attention we give. And that is why we are unable to develop true, unconditional, impartial love and compassion. We are still stuck with compassion, which is still kind of mixed with attachment, and not being able to develop the love and compassion beyond that attachment, or true love and compassion which is not attached to the attachment, or not mixed with the attachment. And that is how sometimes it feels like it is compassion, but I think if we really think it's more than compassion, it's attachment. There is maybe some level of compassion, but it's a lot of time is attachment. If it's true compassion, then we should be feeling same way when something happens in the distant, someone who is distant to us, or is animals or human beings, and we don't feel same way. We don't have same concern. We don't have same worry. We can't find same energy and same energy, same resource in terms of practice, in terms of prayers, in terms of helping, because they are unknown to us, because they are not close to us, even though they are human beings, even though they are sentient beings. And so here the advice saying, don't be too attached to some, and don't be so indifference or disliking or even anger towards others. Instead, try to practice more equanimity, more balance, more evenness, more level of compassion, more impartial, less discriminating in that way. And of course, it is not easy, but point is to understand that, being aware of that, and then through that kind of knowing and awareness, trying to improve from being partial to impartial, from being uneven to being more even, trying to expand our love and compassion towards more and more, not just towards those who are very close to us. Otherwise, we'll never grow. As far as concerning those who are close, even the animals are great. Sometimes they are better than human beings. You can see, like some of those, the elephants or the cows in Africa, where they defend the babies, and even not their babies, is because they are part of their social community, and they try to put the babies in the middle, and they try to protect, trying to fight the lions, sacrificing themselves to protect their species, to protect their babies. And so in terms of caring just for your close one, even the animals, sometimes they seem to do better than even us sometimes. And so therefore, we want to grow, spiritually we want to grow more than that. And in order to grow more than that, we should be able to expand more than that. Reach out further than that. Not just who are surrounding us, those which are feel close, but to be able to expand that boundaries and go beyond that. And that is the advice here, giving. And that is the Bodhisattva practice, always, trying to practice the love, compassion, without impartiality, And that is one of the problems in the world, is because of that. This partial love and compassion, That is why even your children are billionaire, the parent will give all this inherent, all billion to them, billions of money to them. Probably their children doesn't need it. They have more than enough for themselves. But they are unable to give to those who are in need there, because they feel so attached to their own, friends, circles, families, children. And so we all try to do that. And so therefore, anyone who doesn't have a rich families, they can't get more support. Friends, families, whether it's individual, whether it's organizations. And so that is the thing, And so that is the thing. That is another example that I see everywhere. That is how ordinary human beings, Sometimes you see, people around them, they have more than enough for not only for themselves, for their children, and their even grandchildren. Still, they find very difficult to help others who are in really need, and they still leave everything to those who probably doesn't need. So that is because of that kind of, attachment and partiality. And so here, that is where the Bodhisattvas practice to go beyond that. And if we all practice, then I think those who have more, they will be able to reach out to those who have less. And through that, we can find more better world where there's more equality, more kind of, less very, so difference in equality, But we can't blame others because we are behaving just like them, It's, we ourselves are just kind of just that way too, So anyway, so that is that one. And 11, value the encompassing the far-reaching practice. I think sometimes there is a slightly different translation of that. Because as I said, in many of the commentaries, it is in the same, the 10 and 11, so there is 21. But it's a continuity of that, when we practice the Lojong, trying to practice patience towards all sentient beings, trying to practice love and compassion to all sentient beings, far-reaching all sentient beings, pervading all sentient beings, and not only that, then trying to have that patience, love, compassion all the time, not just sometime and not sometime, but trying to keep that all the time, and when you practice, not trying to be pretending, but it's coming from the depth of your heart, sincerely, practicing sincerely from your heart, as we mentioned, as the author mentioned all the day, as we have discussed before, sometimes externally we show we are practicing love, compassion, patience, Lojong, but not really coming from inside. Sometimes it just becomes a practice to impress. Sometimes it's just to show up that we are a good practitioner. So that kind of practice is not coming from the depth of your heart, from the bottom of your heart. Is not being very sincere about the practice. It's very kind of superficial, very artificial. So here is saying, that we try to, when we practice those Lojong, trying to practice sincerely from the depth, and being honest with our practice, and not just on superficial level. So that is, so when we do that practice from the very bottom, from the very root of it, and without being too superficial and artificial, then it has a very far-reaching result. Then it can have a very far-reaching effect. Then we can really make a big, huge progress and jump in our path. Otherwise, we are unable to make, forward and progress, because the practice is not sincere and it is not very from the depth. The practice is not from the depth, but it is very superficial, artificial. So therefore, we are unable to make really big progress in our path, even though we have been practicing for a long time. Even though we might have been practicing for a long time, we are still stuck there, not being able to go further, because, and so therefore, if we want to make progress and go much more further progress in our path, then the practice has to be from the very depth. And so that is where the advice here is coming. Train, and then it is the 12. Train consistently to deal with difficult situations. So this is, when we are engaged in the practice of Lojong, we should even more emphasize more effort into practicing, whether we are practicing patience, whether we are practicing loving kindness, compassion, putting even more effort to practice patience, loving kindness, compassion, bodhisattvas towards those objects which are more difficult, you know. Of course, as we have mentioned before, we start with the easy one, but we don't get stuck with that all the time, you know. All the practice, we start with the easy one, but because it is easy and you can feel it, it is not so challenging. Sometimes we just stuck on that because when easy one, you feel good about it. And then we don't want to go beyond that, you know, we don't want to leave the comfort zone, you know. You want to be always in comfort zone. You know the practice is easy, you can feel it, you can have some kind of blissfulness, joy in that practice. So you just want to keep and you don't want to go further than that. But here is saying you have to go beyond your comfort zone and then expand to those more difficult objects, you know, such as, you know, someone you dislike, you know, someone who you have conflict, whether you call his enemy or not, you know. We have to expand our practice of patience, love, compassion to those difficult objects. And it is not going to be easy. It will make you very uncomfortable at the very beginning. I've heard some people, they even feel physically overwhelmed, even physically gets almost like sick when they try to expand that love, compassion to someone, you know, especially in this present situation for certain individuals, you know. But we will have to try slowly. Of course, you can't go just jump into that, okay? You can't just jump into that and then sick, okay? But skillfully, you know, slowly, you have to expand little further, and then more difficult, little difficult, and then little more difficult object and more, and then to the most difficult objects. Only through that, then we can really make real progress, big progress. As I mentioned, you know, it's easy to feel love and compassion and patience to those who, you know, whom we have no conflict, you know. I think you all, most of people will agree, you know. It's easy to have love and compassion for your pet because they don't disagree with you so much. You don't have much conflict with them. That is why it is easy. It's easy to have compassion when children are young because they follow you. You don't have less, you have less conflict. But when they grow up and when they don't agree with you, when they disagree with you, when they argue with you, that is when then it becomes more difficult to have same level of love, compassion you had towards them when they were young. So therefore, that's where we have to learn to, we have to put effort. It requires effort. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But we can't just not go in that out of our comfort zone because it's not easy, because it's not comfortable. The practice is not about just feeling comfortable. It's about growing up, developing, progressing. And if we just keep ourselves in that comfort zone, easy one, we'll never make a progress, much progress. And so therefore, that is where we have to put effort here. That practice is saying then we have to even it's not comfortable and it's not easy, we have to try. And with the practice and with trying and with the practice, as Shantideva says, there's nothing that cannot get easy over the time with the familiarity, with the practice, So even something that feels so difficult at the very beginning, if you don't give up and if you continue to practice, even if it's difficult, maybe at the very beginning, you might even feel like vomiting. And with the practice over the time, it's still uncomfortable, but maybe you might not feel like vomiting anymore. And slowly, you might not feel the stomach ache, and slowly, you don't have any this physical discomfort. Slowly, you will not have that mental discomfort. And slowly, you will feel easy for even that person's individual, which you feel very difficult, very uncomfortable, even physically sick at the very beginning. And I have met some friends, who have shared stories about their practice, and they had a certain individual in their life where they had a very extremely difficult relationship, and they started to keep that person in their practice, as the object of their practice. And slowly over the years, then it wasn't, they didn't have the same feeling, or they didn't have it wasn't difficult anymore. Not only difficult, they were not the person that they dislike anymore, So then in their mind, change from enemy to something, non-enemy. And they are able to reach that point because even it wasn't easy. They keep on doing the practice. And slowly, they started to have some transformation and change in their heart, in their mind. So it is something possible. Many people have been able to achieve and successful by doing that. So enemy, or sometime, when we have it could be, a difficult object of practice of patience, for example. It can be someone creating problems, obstacles to us, our families, our friends that we believe. Sometimes, when we have challenges in our life, maybe health challenges. For sometimes when we have health challenges, then we become very impatient, due to that situations, And so then it's more difficult to practice patience when we have good health. It's more difficult to practice patience when you have physical challenges. Same thing, it's more easy to practice the patience, for example, when things are going well in our life, in terms of relationship, in terms of finance, everything. But when there is a lot of challenges in our life with different things, sometimes we have very difficult challenges with finance situation. Sometimes we have very difficult challenges with our relationship, different kind of relation. then it becomes more difficult to practice the patience. But even in those cases, again, here it says, it's difficult objects, different objects to practice patience. But again, we have to train, we have to put effort to extend to even those difficult objects to practice patience, for example. Another difficulty is, sometimes, certain people, sometimes we have sometimes we don't know why we dislike someone very much. Sometimes you cannot figure out why, but sometimes people just dislike each other. Even just with the first meeting, sometimes first meeting, you like each other. First meeting, you dislike each other or dislike one person. And sometimes, it could be just from previous karma, karmic in this life. We don't know each other. We have not heard each other. We have not done anything, but somehow you just feel with certain individuals just like that. So, carrying some kind of baggage from the past. And again, for someone you dislike, even for no reason from this time, but then again, it is difficult to feel love, compassion, be patient with such people because you dislike them. And so again, taking those objects as the object of patience, love, compassion, taking those difficult objects as an object for those practices, and also sometimes among acquaintance, like your friends, someone partners, families, because we know each other's faults, weakness, because we have spent so much enough together time, so we know each other's, our faults, our weakness, our mistakes, our shortcomings, and due to that, sometimes it can be when someone make some mistake, sometimes it might be quite difficult to forgive, to be patient, to have the love and compassion anymore, in certain time, in certain situations, it becomes more difficult to be, patient to them than someone you don't know, Sometimes it becomes more difficult to feel compassion, love for such people than someone you don't know, So again, even in those situations, even in those times, in certain time, in certain situation, even your friends, your families become very difficult to practice patience, love, and compassion. And so in those times, again, instead of, because it's difficult, instead of not putting effort, you have to train, put effort to practice, to even those times to be patient, love, and compassion. So basically, those are certain, training to expand the love, compassion, patience, all those Lojong practices, not only towards the easy objects, but also towards difficult objects. Not only towards difficult objects, after some time, you have to focus more on those difficult ones. Not just always remaining on the easy one. And instead, we should try to, and it's the same with your body exercise too, And so you have to, so that is the precept, the advice here, to expand to the difficult one. Not only expand to them after some time, you have to emphasize, you have to focus more on the difficult one, instead of just the easy ones. And so, okay, we'll have a 10 minutes break. So, and also we find, it's more difficult to practice patience, love, compassion towards those we feel competitive, and towards those which we feel jealousy, and especially for those which we feel they have hurt you or harm you for something that you have not done anything to them. For those such individuals, we find more difficult to practice patience, love, compassion, so forth. So again, those are another objects of difficult to practice, which again we need, according to the Lojong precept and advice, that we should also try to make them as the main object of our practice and focus on those which are more difficult. Okay. Then next one, 13, is don't rely on other conditions. So what it means is, at the moment, when you are trying to practice the Dharma, and especially when you are trying to practice the Lojong here, it very much depends on the conditions, environment and conditions. When environment and conditions are good, then we tend to practice. When environment and conditions are challenging, then we tend to not to apply and practice. And so how much we practice, how sincerely we practice, very much by being affected by the conditions and environment. And therefore our practice is not stable, not stable. Our practice sometimes is strong, sometimes weak, sometimes we do practice, sometimes we don't do practice, because it's very much influenced by the environment, the conditions. So here is saying, the advice saying, don't allow the environment, the conditions to influence your practice, and regardless of whatever conditions and environment, you should try to continue to practice your Dharma practice, especially here the Lojong practice. So if we see, we are very kind of strange, the way we kind of course, when you have physical challenges, when we are physically not feeling well, and emotional challenges, then again, we become overwhelmed by all these challenges, and then we tend to not to practice. We become too overwhelmed by those challenges sometimes. Sometimes we feel we don't have the energy, then that becomes an excuse for us to not to practice. Of course, there are times maybe your body does not really have energy and you need to rest. Definitely, there's no doubt about it. But sometimes also it is just our mind giving an excuse, our mind playing the trick, and another same thing. Sometimes we have good health-wise, we have good conditions, we are healthy and good. And then maybe sometime again, we might have other challenges, other difficult conditions, challenges, environment. Maybe we are going through some relationship problems, whatever, whether it's between children, parents, between siblings, between partners, wife, husband, between boyfriend and girlfriend, or between friends, again, that kind of disturb our mind, overwhelm our mind. And our mind is too lot of time kind of in that state. And again, we cannot find the time, energy, resource to do the practice. And sometimes we have those good relationships, all that good health, but maybe sometimes we have condition which is not conducive, difficult time with our finance, our job, and so forth. Again, that becomes another source of not practicing. Sometimes all of them, well, the weather is not so great. And sometimes that can be an excuse not to practice. Too hot, too cold. Everything has to be so perfect. The way we want. Everything has to just perfect for us to think, oh, now I can practice. Probably that will never come. And so sometimes at the Dharma Center, you often hear, and sometimes I even see sometimes, when it's summer, it's so great, people want to go out and do things, so they don't have time to go to the teachings and practice. Winter, it's snowing, it's cold, so no time to go to the teachings and practice. So, again, either way, when it's good weather, then you get distracted. Oh, I have to go here and do outdoor things, this and that. And then you can't find time to really do that. And when you don't have time to go out, but it's cold and snowy, whatever, and then again you feel, of course, when it's very badly snowing, there is a danger, but otherwise, but we have all this kind of excuse, So definitely when the conditions are not good, then we are unable to practice. And sometimes when the conditions are good, also we are unable to practice because we get distracted. We get distracted with so many things. We get so distracted with so many other things. And so therefore, we struggle and to practice. And thereby, we hardly find much time to practice. So here the advice is, whatever conditions presented, when conditions are good, utilize that good condition to practice the Dharma. When conditions are not good, utilize that conditions to make your practice even stronger and transform that into the path. When the condition is good, we try to remind ourselves, so how lucky I am, how grateful I am, feeling gratitude that I have all this, everything going well on me, well, the conditions are good. And so therefore, such conditions where everything is good, all the good doesn't come all the time. Therefore, I shouldn't waste it when I have this good condition, because that could be changed. And therefore, I should not get so much distracted, and therefore I should focus more on practice. And so we try to use the good condition to kind of inspire and to inspire ourselves to practice more, by understanding that condition might not be there always. And so therefore, I don't want to lose that opportunity, and thereby inspiring us to practice more. And when conditions are not good, when all things are kind of difficult, reminding ourselves, it is only the practice, the Dharma, the Lojong, that can help us in such difficult situations. And thereby inspiring that difficult situation to practice even more harder. Because at the end, that is what really matters, Our Dharma practice, especially the Lojong practice, is what really matters. And so therefore, again, encouraging us to practice even more, and then transforming those difficult, to have even more stronger faith, stronger practice, like many practitioners have done that, Many practitioners, their practice has improved a lot. Lot of the masters, lot of the teachers who came out of Tibet, many of them who were in prisons for many years, including one of my teachers who passed away, 5-6 years ago. And he was in prison for 10 years. For nothing more than because he was a teacher at one of the monasteries. So he was in prison with many others, and they had to do labor works, every day. They take to the field, farmings, labor works, and they have given food just this much. A lot of people died with starvations, and some people started to eat bugs when they were farming in the field. When they find some bugs inside, they had to survive on that, because a lot of people died with starvations. My teacher said he never ate the bugs, and he did survive with so little. But he said so many people died with starvation in that prisons. And so after 10 years of in the prison, then he was released, and then he escaped to India, And he said his practice improved a lot during those difficult times. And so many other teachers has mentioned, some of them have mentioned the biggest, strongest practice they have in their life was during those time in those prisons. Many of them have expressed and mentioned that. Many of them have said, even though they have practice in their life, but most stronger practice they really felt was during those most difficult time in those prisons. And so, that is the key, whatever situation that we come out, trying to be able to utilize that situation to our advantage, instead of making it disadvantage, making it to our advantage. and turning it around. Whether it's a good condition or whether it's bad conditions, or whether it's social condition, whatever condition that we encounter, we face in our everyday life, how can we kind of, take it to make it to our advantage and thereby transform it as a source to practice even more harder, to transform it as an inspiration and source to practice and even more harder. And that is the key, the advice here, the precept, the advice giving here is that one, So instead of relying on the conditions, depending on the conditions, taking the full charge ourselves, whatever conditions, not giving up the practice of Dharma, the Lojong practice, and continue to practice and transforming whatever conditions, good, bad, to practice the Dharma stronger and to practice the Lojong even more stronger. And so that is the 13. And the 14, engage in the principle practice right now. So here is saying, at the moment, we have this precious human life. We have met the Dharma, and we have met this incredible Lojong, the Bodhisattva's practices. We have found the Bodhisattva path practices, especially these incredible Lojong practices, we must have created some positive karma and virtues in the past to have all these conditions. It is not easy to have all these conditions, coming together. And so we have the conducive condition at the moment to practice the Dharma, And so therefore, we have to utilize this right now, because that conditions might be taken away tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. We never know, what is ahead of us. We never know what can stuck us suddenly and then take away all these conditions, all this conducive environment and condition to practice the Dharma. That can be gone like that with sudden changes. And so therefore, we have to practice right now. It is saying present. What we have, the present. And so therefore, instead of waiting for tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, which might not come, what we have is the moment, the present. And so therefore, trying to utilize the moment, the present right now, to engage in the practice of Dharma. And so in practice the Dharma, so here is saying the principal practices. So in the commentaries, some of the commentaries, it says, well, maybe there are some, maybe the commentary doesn't say, but I will say, according to my, and then the commentaries, I think in terms of principle, in terms of our happiness, there are two happiness. I don't know the happiness is the right word, maybe two type of pleasure, sensory pleasure and mental happiness or pleasure. Among those two, the mental happiness is a principle. Okay, it's more important principle than sensory pleasure, you know. And even you have all this sensory pleasure, if you don't have mental peace, joy and happiness, you know, then your life can be quite miserable, quite unhappy. And that we see all over the world, especially in these countries, you know, where people have access to all these external objects that can give you all this sensory pleasure, you know. But many of them so unhappy, so miserable, that they have to depend on all the, you know, medicines. You know, because of so much depressions, unable to, and in some cases, many of them taking their life. And you wonder why they took life. They were so successful. They were so famous. They have all the wealth, everything. You know, they can have all the sensitive pleasure they want. But something was missing. What was missing? Mental happiness, mental peace, inner peace, mental peace and happiness. You know, that is things. And then you see many, including, you know, many parts of the world where people doesn't have resource to have all these sensory pleasures, but they have mental peace, mental joy, happiness, and then you see them much more happy. So this inner mental happiness is more principle, more important than the sensory pleasure, you know. And so the means, the practice to develop that mental pleasure, mental peace is principle practice, important, more important, you know. So Dharma practice, in a sense, the meditations, you know, the different kind of meditations, practices, method, tools that help us to be more, to have more mental peace, inner peace, joy, happiness, you know, that should be the more important and principal practice. That we can have inner mental peace, joy in this life. Then, you know, and then as some commentary says, you know, between happiness of this life and the future life must be more important, you know, should be the more important, more principle. Because when we talk about this life, is just short one life. When you talk about future, is many lifetimes. So therefore, you know, future, which is many lifetime, is more important. The happiness of that life is most important than just short one lifetime. So that is the principle. Within the happiness of future life, you know, then there is happiness of, you know, high rebirth and happiness within the samsara realm and happiness of nirvana. Within that, the happiness of nirvana is more principle, more important, because no matter how much happiness, even on mental level, you have within the samsara, still, you know, you are still in the samsara and you still haven't had the ultimate happiness. And so therefore, the true lasting, true ultimate happiness of nirvana is more principled, more important. And then within our own individual liberation and within the happiness of others, the happiness of others is more important. because when we talk about oneself, even we have ultimate happiness or nirvana for oneself, it's just one person's. When you talk about others, it's countless sentient beings. So countless sentient beings are more important than one individual sentient beings. And so therefore, between that, then the principle is the happiness of sentient beings. And therefore, the practice that lead to that is more important. So therefore, it says, the practice of the bodhicitta, and on the basis of bodhicitta, the practice of bodhisattva is the principle. That is the principal practice, the highest practice. And that is what we should try to engage right now, from starting with right now, all the time, because that is on the basis of bodhicitta, then all the bodhisattva practice is the cause for happiness of oneself and happiness of all sentient beings. It is that practice and that state of mind that can lead ourselves, sentient beings, to the ultimate happiness. And some and then in some commentary it says, when we talk about the practice of the Dharma, then of course we can talk about, studying, reflecting, contemplating, meditating, and so among that, of course, studying is important, but it's not enough. Then after studying, you need to reflect on that, and once you have reflected on that, you need to contemplate and meditate, and so again, important, even though each of them is required. And even though we can practice, as we have mentioned, we can practice 24 hours. We can practice 24 hours with bringing Dharma in all our activities. But again, it says the principle important is to sit on cushions. Sitting on cushion and practicing is important. It will be very difficult to bring the practice in our everyday life if we don't really sit and practice to a certain degree, You sit, you practice, and then what you practice on the cushion, then you try to bring in our everyday life when we are not on cushions. And I think, so that is the way it says engage in the principal practice right now. So the principal practice is the bodhicitta. The conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, and those are the very essence of the Buddha's teachings. The teaching on those two, the practice of those two, is the principle and the essence of all the Buddhist practice, is the principle of all the Buddha's teachings, is the essence of all the Buddha's teachings. And so again, I think throughout those different points, that 7 points that we have going through, Geshe Chekawa remind us again and again how these two bodhicitta, the practice of conventional and ultimate bodhicitta, is the main practice, the actual and main practice of the Lojong, the main and actual practice of the bodhisattvas. and all other practice are, either preliminary, some of them, the end, the completion, some of them as a supportive practice, so yeah, but the main practice is that, the main practice. We shouldn't lose that one. In some practice as a kind of the precept and advice of that, precept, advice, or commitments of those practices. And some of them are kind of supportive practices for that main practice. And so here, the principal practice is that don't apply a wrong understanding. So in the commentary, they talk about kind of 6 wrong understanding or 6 mistaken practice. One of them is, first one is misunderstanding of the patients. So the way it is explained, the why they say is, not having a patience, when you are trying to practice the Dharma, when you are trying to study, reflect, contemplate, and meditate, we don't have much patience. Especially when you are trying to practice, study, reflect, contemplate, practice, and when we encounter some challenges, some difficulties, some hardship, we don't have patience, because sometimes it requires, more time to understand, more study, more time to understand, proper unmistaken understanding of certain subjects. Sometimes it requires more time and practice to have certain transformations, changes, realizations. And sometimes we become very impatient. We don't have patience in that. What we require is patience towards that. On the other hand, we have patience when we are trying to, engage in non-dharma activities, non-spiritual activities. We have a lot of patience. We are willing to go through a lot of hardship. We have the patience to go through a lot of hardship, for so many different non-dharma, non-spiritual things, We have so much patience to fulfill our attachments, to fulfill our anger. Out of anger, we want to, we want to kind of retaliate. And sometimes we have patience, waiting for the right time, right way, right thing to say and do so that we can kind of retaliate them back, We have patience in order to fulfill our attachments. That is wrong patience. Mistaken patience. So that is what it's saying. That kind of patience is not true patience that you should be developing, On the other hand, we need to have patience to practice the Dharma, to be benefit and help to others. On that, we don't have much patience. We have patience to fulfill our selfish attitude. We don't have patience to fulfill love and compassion and to be help and benefit to others. Sometimes we feel, oh, it's interesting, when you really look, sometimes we feel like we are not good meditator, or meditation not for me, I don't know how to meditate. Actually, we have been meditating all our life. And we are really good at that. Except it's a different object. The object of meditation is attachment, anger. And we are good at that. So if we can just change the object, that is it. When you have attachment, when you have anger, when you have jealousy, when you have, what do you do? What do you do? What do you think? When you have anger, you keep on repeating, how bad that person, what he has done, and what he or she has done, what she has said, what he or she behaved, and what he or she will keep on doing in the future, this and that. You keep on thinking, contemplating that again and again and again and again, that all the time. That is what it is. On the other hand, the meditation, love and compassion is just same way, but it's thinking differently. How kind they have been, how compassionate they have been, how nice they have been, how beneficial they have been, how much they have contributed, how they have been kind in the past, how they have been kind now, how they will be kind in the futures, and all of that. So it's just changing that object, but it's same, constantly thinking that again and again and again and again and again. That is what meditation is, repeating that. So I don't know you, but I know good at meditating on attachments, anger, all of that. So I think it is not that we are not a good we don't know how to meditate. It's just different object. Same thing here again, patience. Sometimes we think we don't have patience, but we do have a lot of patience. It's just at certain things. We have patience at certain things and we don't have patience on certain things. So it is not that we don't have patience. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't have a patience. We do have patience on a lot of things. But it is the wrong patience, unhealthy patience, not useful patience. And what we need is more useful, beneficial patience. And so that is where we, so that is the patience. And then one of the other things that all the commentary they talk about is the wisdom or aspirations. Instead of having a wish and inspirations towards enlightenment, towards the practice of our Dharma, towards the inspirations and wish to study, reflect, contemplate practice and enlightenment, we have vision, inspiration, samsaric things, samsaric experience, samsaric activities. And so that kind of vision, inspirations is wrong, especially from the point of view of the Dharma, from the point of view of the Lojong practice, because those inspiration doesn't lead you to something meaningful or beneficial state. That only lead you to more suffering, more pain. That only lead you to suffering. That only lead you to samsara. So instead of that, then we need to develop, inspirations towards enlightenment, inspiration towards the practice of the Bodhisattva path, inspirations towards developing loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom, inspiration to practice, to study, reflect, practice, contemplate, So that kind of inspiration is meaningful, beneficial, helpful. That lead us and others to a state of more happiness, more enlightened state, more happy state. On the other hand, inspirations towards the samsaric pleasure, samsaric experience, samsaric activities lead us to more suffering. It lead us to be caught up more in the prison of the samsara. And that is what we have been doing so far, following that inspirations. So I guess maybe today, maybe we will kind of, I think maybe I'm surprised, so nobody has questions. We haven't had much caution for quite a while. So anyway, thank you very much for joining, and so yeah, again, I think whatever we have discussed, try to apply as much as possible. Try to study and learn yourself with other commentary as well. If you are able to find in other commentaries, you can, because this is so well-known text that is taught by so many masters throughout so many generations, and so by all different lineage. So I think there are a lot of commentaries. Sometimes maybe title might be the title might be something that it doesn't sound like is a commentary of this, but I think basically inside it will be a commentary of that. So it will be nice, again, if you have time, to kind of continue to study, and not just study, then trying to apply as much as possible, little by little. Even we cannot be perfect, and to be able to apply all the things that Geshe Chekawa said here, but even we can apply even 10%, 5% of what is taught here, it can be very helpful and beneficial. Okay, so we'll do the dedications. Yeah. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those who weep with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayer bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid. May those bound be free. May the powerless find power. And may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewels, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who have uphold the superior moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunat victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayer, coordinating and 3 jewels, safety of myself and others, your disciples, please leave home. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.